Mama, I got bad news, bad news. I've been rolling with some bad dudes, bad dudes. I've been trying to get a bag too.
Hello, listeners. Welcome to the Ashes to Awesome podcast, Rising in Recovery. Our podcast provides light, hope, and understanding about addiction and mental health to those living within that life and the people who love them. Today's episode is brought to you by Yacha Treatment Centers in Phuket, Thailand. They are a clinic run by clinicians, not a business run by businessmen. And they know that where addiction is the smoke, trauma is the fire. Learn more at yatracenters.com. That's yatracenter.com. Hey, listeners. Welcome to another edition of Kaleidoscope Wednesday on the Ashes to Awesome podcast. I'm sitting in virtual studio with our regular Wednesday, I want to say guest, but we're going to call him a co-host now, Ryan Bathgate. How you doing today, Ryan?
Well, much better now that I've got a promotion to co-host. Life's really taken off for me here.
Well,
16 episodes, but no, I'm good, man. I'm really well. Life is full.
Good.
And
good.
We always have these options to attach what we want, and I want to attach meaning to progress and growth, and just life is freaking cool, man. It's a trip.
Awesome.
It really is.
Awesome.
Look at it the right way, and if I can do that consistently, it's a gift. I'll leave it at that.
Awesome. So for today, it's been a crazy couple of weeks for us here on the show. As the listeners well know, the last episode they heard was yours, right? Actually, by the time this one airs, there should be one in between. I am interviewing a fellow from your part of the world, from your building here later on tonight, I hope to get that one aired and done for tomorrow morning. So, yeah.
And I think I listened to a ramble.
Yeah, you did a ramble as well, but the last episodes have been you.
Mike did a.
That's right too. Okay, I apologize. Oh, Jesus, sorry, Mike.
Hey, listen, I don't know the ins and outs of this stuff, and I kind of, from the bleacher seats I watch, and technology is such an important thing, and the learning curve of how to be a producer is. I just would have never guessed in watching you do all this, and what happens when something goes wrong, especially technology wise. How that really impacts stuff, but also opens up to new opportunities. So
right,
cool.
Right. So, right now I guess it kicked us into video episodes, full time now. So this being now the third video episode recorded, probably the fourth one published by the time I get to publishing it, and it's been quite the adventure. The whole show has been quite the adventure, really, and I guess that's kind of what I want to talk about today. The show's evolution and our evolution, working together now. It's been, 4 months, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think
lifetime.
I think 4 months, right? Well, in the show's perspective, it is a lifetime. That's right. I think our first episode was episode 30 something, and here we are at 130 or 140ish, whatever the hell it is now, right? So,
yeah, we're up there.
Yeah, right. So there's been a lot that's happened between now and then, and the video episodes. I'm excited to do that. Now that I got the new chomfers in there, I can do that confidently. Still some more to do on the bottom, but we'll get to that. It feels a hell of a lot better. And now, of course, with the video episodes, it gives the listeners a chance to get to know both of us a little bit better. But I want to focus a bit on you today. Our history, I guess, if I could speak to that real quick.
Sure.
Grade school buddies, there's you, my brother, and myself. We're three musketeers in our own kind of way back then, right? Getting into shit and doing whatever we were doing.
Yeah.
Lost contact for 30 years. For the most part, there's a couple hellos and highs in there, but I bumped into you once in Calgary, and
I'd say safely 20, 25 years. There was some cross party habits there in my late teens or early 20s. I did some moving with you for some beer money. At one time.
Everybody that knows me did moving with me for beer money at one time. Jesus, yeah. That was
so that's what am I? I'm 45 now. 25 years is pretty safe to say we lost touch.
Right. So
now Now,
social
hold on,
media.
though.
Sorry.
I did every couple of years. I sent a message out.
Yeah, you did so.
I,
You did so.
I
Yeah,
would make
yeah.
attempts.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm blaming you.
Yeah, there's
I'm just kidding.
some shame coming from Ryan. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, shame shade, throwing
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
I have to distract from the super pink watermelon shirt now that we're on video.
It's fighting salmon. It's not pink.
You know what? And I got pink socks. Here, look at
Really?
this.
He's just
Yeah,
rocking the pink today.
My pink. I got my pink Vans on. I like pink. It's my daughter's
Love
favorite color.
Yes. So, anyway, the wonders of social media gets us back in touch. After so long. I'm not sure if I'd started the podcast by the time I said hi again. Yeah, I had. I just started it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it was like you were in it was War Story days or something like that.
Yeah. I was still telling stupid stories and whatever, right? Yeah. The show hadn't evolved. But.
So I sent a message out maybe in the fall, and then you replied to it in January, February.
That sounds about right. The timeline works. Yep.
And then you had I think at that point you must have researched a little bit of what I was up to or something, because then we started talking about what you were up to, and would I do a memorial for my sister, which we obviously both knew, and and then I think I audaciously invited myself to do a segment. But I think your response was, that's exactly what I was thinking, or something to those lines.
Yeah. No. It's definitely, I wouldn't call it audacity in any way. So let's go back to that, I guess. Those missing years. And I know we don't like to get into your history in detail, but what about kind of a synopsis of what was going on through all that time there, Ryan?
I did the party thing, like everybody, I guess. And, I moved around a lot. Comox, the big move is you move to Victoria. That's the big city, that's the big move everybody does. And then I ended out in Rocky Mountain House, back in Calgary a few times, worked in the pipeline, did framing, did just about every job that, that didn't require any education. I went back to college in 1998, maybe something like that, at Camosun in Victoria, and I think we sold dime bags, and I pretty much I went to school. I carried a flask with me every day, so I don't even know what happened there, but I got my first charge as an adult while I was going to Camosun. So I was 19. I was just adultable. And then and that kind of changed my trajectory a little bit. I was going for crim, thinking that I was going to go to law school. That was my dad's thing. My whole life was like, you're going to be a lawyer or a dentist. That was, I was like, well, dentist sounds lame, but I could be a lawyer. So what I didn't, retrospect is everything. I would have never had the discipline for that. You never would have. Which, I'm sorry. The discipline for that level of study, to go to whatever, to get my crim degree and then go to law school, and 7 years later, that was never going to happen. So fair enough. Yeah. I went on I remember I was in Victoria, and my buddy said, "Hey, I'm going to Calgary." And I was 3 sheets to the wind, so I grabbed a cowboy hat and a bunch of CDs, because that's what year it was, and and I ended up out in Strathmore or Chestermere Lake, and I just partied with my old man until I realized that it was like October, and I'd missed going back to school, and so I got a job with him doing Cat 5 cable installation, data communications. My dad was he worked for TELUS, and then he took a retirement package and went and worked for another company, but he got into some trouble with being able to operate a motor vehicle, and so I was his driver, setting up switchboards, and so I learned, anyway, I picked up my first real trade there, a communications technician. I started working Glentel Wireless. I got sober at that time, again, and that one stuck for quite a while. Yep. So I went to about a couple months into that job, got trained on this satellite system called the OVC2 satellite system it was proprietary to FedEx. It was the first real-time tracking. Like now everything is real-time tracking. This is the first one you could do that. And it was all by satellite transmission. And so I was the only one in Canada with this training. So he scooped me up. I packed up my 1982 Jeep CJ and headed across Canada in the middle of winter. It was December. And this thing bolts would start falling off once you hit 100 kilometers an hour. Like it was literally a bucket of bolts. It was literally a metal bathtub with a motor.
Yeah.
And so, And so, and the lights went out. I broke down a Medicine Hat like the first time. Like that should have been an omen, and then the lights went out in the middle of the night, and I drive by this sign is like past North Bay, and it said the coldest recorded temperature in Canada. It was like my lights just go out.
Oh wow!
Like, oh my god! I couldn't see anything. It was snowing so bad. There was moose running towards the car in the road, and so I pull into this it was the only motel anywhere. Yep. I pull in and I'm like, I'm gonna die out here. Like it's minus 40, and I didn't know what to do. And this lady had forgotten. The lady who owned the motel, she'd forgotten a piece of mail that she needed for the bank in the morning. And she just happened to pull in like at 40 minutes after I got there, and I'm ready to freeze to death, and was like, "Oh my god, yeah, no!" And gave me a room, and so I slept in this room, and then I drove without lights to where it was Sault Ste. Marie. There was a Canadian Tire. I got some wire. I hardwired from my battery to both of my lights, and so every time I'd stop, I'd have to lift the hood and take the thing off the battery. Anyway, and I moved to Toronto. I lived there for about 7 years, and I did. I was a member. It was the show and shine. I was Mr. Big Book Thumping Captain Recovery. Just so full of shit though. Nothing but ego. Nothing. I was a young guy with multiple years, and look at me and check out how many cigarettes I can get from my sponsees, and just a pile of I pull up with my Jeep and have bass just pouring out of it, ruining the whole meeting for everybody, and then all these 6 months sober girls pouring out of it. Yeah, so just a cool guy. Yeah.
Just ask yourself, right? Yeah.
Well, and then I found a resentment against AA and stopped going, and it's just and then eventually I saw it was minus 30 on March 31st, I think, or something like that.
Yep.
And I'm like, all those years of people, every time they meet me, they go, "You're from Vancouver or Vancouver Island? Like, why do you live here? You don't have family? Like, what the hell are you doing?" And eventually I was like, yeah, that's a good question, So I moved back over here. I decided that I was never going to live anywhere. I didn't want to live for money, period. And my heart and my home is here. And there's something about growing up with the ocean close by. It really does something to you. Like when you're away from it, you really miss it. And I was gone for about 10 years between Alberta and Ontario. And, missing the mountains and missing the ocean was really, it drew me back. And so I started, that's when I went into, I came back. And so my buddies that I grew up with went from, selling shorts and pants or long tails and short tails, or whatever you want to call them, half grams and grams, to moving larger stuff. And so I started to explore the illicit markets a little bit, and I carried that on for a while. The thing, though, is when you have a taste for something and you try to sell it, it doesn't always work out. And so what I found is
doesn't. No.
I'm not good at dealing in the illicit world. And so so that turned into I did a stint in treatment, and then I did another stretch of recovery, and I'm a firm believer that it is a wonderful place to get going. But I think just my own philosophy is that just everything, if you don't keep exploring and expanding the horizon of understanding, everything becomes a prison eventually. Everything, and I will admit, the prison walls of a recovery community are a lot healthier and a lot more easy to navigate than the prison walls of a fentanyl addiction or a crack cocaine addiction or something, even or
Of
alcohol
course,
addiction.
right? Yeah,
You know what I
yeah,
mean? And so yeah, I just kind of I got busy and life took off, and eventually it went from going once a week to showing up for people's cakes to just being a supporter from the outside, I guess. And when you get into like when I became I should go back, I guess, because I went to school and got my required counseling certifications,
okay,
which took some time, and I did that like. So this is after I was like, I did construction and I did electrical apprentice and I was a communications technician, just all these things that my heart wasn't in. And
yeah,
so, but I was so shit scared to go back to school, man, because, and I know I've talked about this before, but I guess that's why we're kind of doing a revisit here.
yeah, yeah.
From the time that I quit college in 1998 to the time I went back in 2013, I think, I was so scared to go back to university, like so scared because I'd never had anything, like, success was not something that I was familiar with in any endeavor I pretty much did. And so I thought the only thing I ever had really was my intelligence. And that was also a source of insecurity. So I thought if I went to school, I would fail and be proven that I wasn't as smart as I thought I was, or it was the only thing I had left that would be taken away from me, and I'd be left with nothing. And so, that finally came to like everything was in. It took me that much time to get the courage to face that fear, to be honest. So everything fell into place, and like it was like
Yeah.
the moment I decided to go to school, because in that time I got a DUI, because we like to do that.
Ah,
They threw the book at me. They didn't. The judge did not see me as a productive member of society based on his thing was my affiliations at the time.
yeah.
So I had $7,500 of fines that I had to pay to get my license back, or $7,500 in unpaid interest from my student loan, and so it was a crossroad. So, and I had just saved up enough to get my license back when I found out that I needed to pay this thing if I wanted to go to school. So it was a really big
Yeah.
fork in the road in my life, and I obviously chose to pay the school so I could go to school, and I went on to not have a license for the 5 years or whatever it was.
Yeah.
So I lived
Yeah.
out of a backpack. I took the bus everywhere. I lived downtown in Commercial Drive area, which is the coolest area in Vancouver, probably, for being in your early 30s, which I was
Yeah.
at the time, single guy. It was good. So, yeah, I mean, I lived this whole life until I finished school. I went and got a job with Mike at my old organization. I don't want to plug an organization that doesn't deserve it here, so I'm not going to do that.
All right. Yep.
But my mentor I worked there for a long time. My mentor, when he built it, he built this phenomenal place that was just amazing. I made $20 an hour and didn't care. All
Yeah.
I cared was just like, I loved coming to work every day, and I loved the
Yeah.
ability to. And the other thing is, I had an audience, and so I got to take all these ideas and put them into play. And like once I got into the world of first therapy, but now more of systems, it's been this passionate drive that like doesn't it doesn't take away. It doesn't I don't know how to explain it, but there's a ton of motivation. And now that I have kids, and the motivation is to really shift or alter the social tapestry in a way that we find more humanness within our daily interactions, opposed to the traditional war on drugs, the stigma of therapy, the stigma of mental health, like all of that stuff that we've seen in our life, homosexuality, like we've seen all these things evolve in our lifetime.
Mhm.
And I want that. I want to have an imprint. I just want, I don't even care if I have anything to do with it, but I want my daughter's world to be a hell of a lot better than what
Fair enough. Right.
we've come
Yeah.
up with, especially when relevant to allowing individual freedom and allowing people to feel and be who they want to be and how they want to be and how they want to identify and whatever, because none of it's any of my goddamn business, to tell you the truth.
Yeah. Right.
Now, for a quick public service announcement. One of the best ways to reduce stigma is with education. If you still have questions that we haven't answered on today's show, you can learn more about Together We Can's education group at twcrecoverylife.org.
Hi everybody, this is Carl with today's public service announcement about naloxone, or, as it's more commonly known, Narcan, a medication that can help save the life of somebody experiencing an opioid overdose. Did you know that in 2021 opioids were responsible for over 7,000 deaths in Canada and 106,000 deaths in the United States? These numbers are staggering, but there is hope. Narcan is a medication that can reverse the effects of an opioid overdose and help save a life. Narcan is available for free at participating pharmacies and harm reduction centers across Canada and is also available without a prescription at most pharmacies in the United States. Now I know most of you won't be around people using opioids, but you never know when it will be around you, and you could save the life of someone who is loved and who loves.
True story. So
So then that's why I shifted. Instead of going for my master's in counseling, I shifted and went into leadership because it's about systems change. And my big thing at that time, which still is about policy reform and how we are treating mental health and addictions through the lens of political policy and rulemaking.
And how's that going for you so far then? Like, do you feel like you're making any headway, or are you kind of feeling like, that emptying the ocean with a teaspoon thing?
Well, it always feels like that, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
You look at the numbers, like the overdose, the drug poisoning deaths are like at an astronomical rate. And like when my sister died in 95, it was like, whoa, like what happened? How could this be? And if she were to die today, it would be, a topic of conversation for a couple of days, and people would be on, and then another one would happen, and so, it always feels like that. But like, I've made some headway relative to connections and like the CDPC and things like that. But, when I was in grad school, I came up against ethics and their willingness, and now I understand it better. At the time I was pissed, but they didn't want me to work with vulnerable populations. I wanted my thesis to be about how the social justice system impacts or reinforces the stigma relative to addictions and mental health, and especially with this idea that addiction and criminality go hand in hand, which just pisses me off. And anyways, I had to shift my focus, and it became about how working with mental health and addictions or mental health and substance use affects the workers, like the people doing the work, because basically they are, private sector is a heck of a lot more lenient in expectations that people get from workers than they are in the nonprofit sector. So we do a lot more for a lot less. And, the people that go into that work, they care, because nobody's there for a paycheck. Let's be honest.
Yeah. Right.
We're there to impact. And
that's funny. When I was in detox this last time, there's one of the staff there. She's hated strongly disliked by most of the clients there. There's always going to be one of those people, and she's all about the rules, and I fell into that too. And then one day I'm sitting there talking to her, and it turns out that she's got these crazy, like, high blood horses all over the world. She's got, like, I watched her car pull up. She's got a Mustang that someday I could hope to dream to have. And I'm like, she doesn't need to be here. Right? She obviously doesn't need to be. She's not here for the paycheck. She's here because she cares.
Yeah.
Right. And all of us need to stop and think about that. And it really helped change my tune. And it made me think about each and every person there in a different light at the end of the day. Right. And said, if you're here, it's because you want to be, because you care. There's no other reason to get into it. There's no real incentive. That's for sure. Right.
And it's certainly no money. Like, I'll give you an example here. Like my degree averages of, I won't give you the numbers. I'll just tell you that I work for $30,000 a year less than what my degree averages.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And what we deal with here is it's a lot.
Yeah.
And like
you couldn't even compare it to your average private
Right.
I'm sure. Right.
And like, this is where, at least when I talk about apathy being a duvet, like all these things that we learn along the way. And here's what came in my thesis is that when we train people in emotional intelligence, they have a higher propensity to be effective in their job, mitigate burnout, and learn how to regulate their emotional response. And those that are ill-equipped, often face burnout, put themselves last, put their family last, and become ineffective in the long run. And like, which was something I didn't expect, to be honest with you. I didn't see that coming out of the research, but it's definitely something I look at now. Of course, if you've listened to the show, I have a hard time navigating, prioritizing either myself or my time with my family, which is a constant struggle. But I got no excuses. I always tell myself I signed up, I made a commitment, and that commitment is important. That commitment is to help people, and so it gets. I mean, help people, be with my family, make sure it gets. What's the word? There's dissonance, I guess, would be the best way to describe it. So especially when it comes to values, So I mean, I know I kind of jumped around a bit, but I mean,
that gives us synopsis for sure, right? Yeah,
and it's all like so this all started with watching how like I know like when my sister died, it was like people were trying to make excuses, and hers is what I would call an accidental overdose, not necessarily even a poisoning in that case, because she took the wrong bag, and so alcohol and heroin, they don't go well together, and so that's how that happened. But like I hear a lot of like you'll hear about somebody who's passed, and then you'll hear that it was an aneurysm or something like that, and like I know that's not true, you know what I mean? And so like it's still here. It's still here today. The stigma.
Of course it is.
And I know one of those memes. It's like it's not an addict using. It's a human being suffering, and we can't just to look at it any other way is a disservice to the social tapestry and what we're building moving forward. And how are we choosing words that are going to mitigate the reinforcement of stigma relative to mental health and substance use? You know what I mean?
I do.
And the other thing is like, just because people use substances doesn't mean they're addicts. Like substance use disorder is like 10% diagnosed of the people that use substances in the world. Right. So it's just, and like, the questions aren't like, why are you doing that? Is that Gabor-Mate thing is what's the pain? I saw this thing, a meme today about like, it's not, marijuana is not a gateway. Alcohol is not a gateway. Whatever is not a gateway. Sexual abuse is a gateway. Neglect is a gateway. Childhood trauma is a gateway. What are we doing today to ensure that our children aren't going to be in those places in 15 years?
Right.
You know what I mean? And how are we looking at the development of our children especially from an abuse and neglect standpoint, which, we're at least in an open space enough with the social tapestry that we can have these conversations now. Where that just didn't even exist. I remember like, what, you're going to a shrink? You crazy? Like I remember thinking that in the 80s.
Yeah, remember when we were kids here in Alberta, you go to Panoka, right? That was like an insult through and through, right?
Right. I remember that.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. So we've evolved quite a bit, and I just, for me, it's important to be an agent of that change. And like as much as I have an ego and I have some ideas and some are not popular, but it doesn't matter to me what role I play, as long as there's being roles played. You know what I mean?
I think if people disagree with you, all the better, because that opens a conversation.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, the conversations are what leads to the good things, right? Whether you're right or wrong, to me, doesn't matter, because now there's been a conversation had, and that's how we get to moving forward, right? That's how we do it right there, right?
I couldn't agree more. And Brene Brown talks about that is like, courage is the ability to have the tough conversations, and like that's what we have to do.
Absolutely.
And so that makes me kind of think of like, you know, I remember I was talking about how I was in my truck yelling at the radio, like, no, it's the same thing. When I was listening to the ramble about the whole shame guilt thing, right?
Yeah.
And so I don't know if you have explored the world of Brene Brown's work, but
Just surface levels so far. Yeah.
It's for me. She's a huge influence, and a lot of the stuff that I talk about or the theories I've developed have started with listening or reading her work. You know, in concert with some, you know, Viktor Frankl and some Husserl, and you know, there's a number of influences. But when we talk about the guilt shame thing, this all started for me with her statement that Lisa had said that the understanding is guilt is I have done something wrong.
Yeah.
Shame is I am wrong.
Right.
That's a Brene Brownism.
Yeah.
So that worked for me. I was like, okay, that makes sense. So now I started to learn this locating thing, you know, about, you know, which is phenomenological as far as like consciousness, and it's also existential in that it's a human experience thing, right? Yeah. And so what I try to do is I try to locate where these feelings are, so I know where they're coming from or how that they're operating within my being, and I locate them physically. So when I think about anxiety, I'm like lower solar plex, stomach tension. You know what I mean? Yeah. When I think about love, it's kind of up a little bit higher in my heart, and I think about connection is the same place. When I think about fear, I'm up here in my head. Yeah. You know what I mean? So that's what I mean by locate. Like I physically try to locate. So I go to guilt, and I'm like, guilt is this place in between. It's in between anxiety, and it's just below love and connectable. Yeah. But it's this very concentrated, driving feeling that's not comfortable. Like, don't get me wrong here. Guilt is not a fun thing, but it's a very natural, organic thing. And then I went to shame, and I was like, I can't locate it, but it's everywhere. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? I can't. Yep. And so I started to get this feeling of being covered in it when I have a shame storm, as Brene Brown will call it. And so, and then it occurred to me, I was like, oh my God, it's like, it feels like it's the outside in. Mm-hmm. Guilt is very central. Boom, inside out.
I love the way you say that.
And then I was like, so I thought about, how is shame used? Mm-hmm. And so when we use guilt, it's like, I want to make this amendment in my behavior to be a better person, you know? Mm-hmm. But shame doesn't do that. Shame tells me I'm not enough.
Exactly.
And who's telling me that? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And like, it's the they, it's the them, it's the it. It's the faceless. And I look at, forgive me, but I look at the Catholic Church and that idea of heaven, hell, right, wrong, purgatory. I look at, you know, the way that most of our parents were parented in this should language.
Yes.
Now, should, in my opinion, is a shame word. It's a driver. Yep. And so it's always this, you should be this in comparison. Another thing Brene Brown says is comparison is an agent of shame. And I'm like, oh, that's another external process. And so this is where I got the idea that I think that shame is a social emotion, not a human emotion. One that's put on us that in an effort to keep us under control. The way we treat men and women is completely different and usually has a shame driver. Men get away with so much more because of the patriarch, and shame is used to try and, you know, keep women controlled. You know, for example, we look at sexuality and like even if we look at our body parts, look how much shame is put on genitals compared to like my elbow. And why, you know what I mean? Like, what's the difference? Just part of my body, you know? But you can't say that word. Oh, you know, like, like I can see your nipples. Oh no. You know what I mean? Like, I can see your fingertips. Who gives a shit? Right? You know, but so this is what I mean is like, there's all these like social tapestry mechanisms that we use to control. And this is why I think shame is the number one social emotion. Now, I could be way out in left field off my rocker, but this really makes sense to me. And when I use this in my life, it provides value for me specifically in my individual experience. I can't express how it works with anyone else because I don't know. And I've not read anywhere that says shame is a social emotion. So
well, I can tell you for me personally that that episode that we did about shame versus guilt, profound change in my life. It was one of those, and I've had a few of those in working with you now over the last 16 episodes. That was one of them that really, really has changed my outlook on a lot of things. And as such, I've passed that on to, I couldn't even tell you anymore how many people, hundreds of people, right? Right. So
I think the real gift, Chuck, is that it gives us choice, and choice gives us freedom.
Yeah.
So when I'm feeling shame, I know first thing first, I know it's not mine. This is being put on me from something else, and it's up to me whether I want to adhere to that law or rule or whatever it is that's being put on me. Now, guilt, completely different game. Like they're apples and oranges. Like I feel guilt, and just I'm propelled. I want to, like I raised my voice in front of my kids once, and that made me feel so guilty, especially thinking about, the way that we came up. It was a different time. And I don't want that for my kids. And so now I'm propelled into this state of awareness that I want to choose to have disagreements, be not in front of my kids, and in a way that's productive and following the tenets of being seen, being heard, being loved, and feeling lovable. And so, with that formula, I get to look at this in a completely different lens, and it propels me to want to be a better human being. Yeah. Shame tells me I'm never going to be enough. Like that's it. That's what it says. I'm defective.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And so I don't want to live in that. And I got one life to live, and I'm going to choose
something that you talked about in the past. And I mean, you're pretty much always talking about it, at least as an underlying tone, without actually saying it as much. But your emotional, or your emotional lexicon, right? Your ability to define individual emotions. And of course, define what an emotion is, as opposed to what I don't know what we're going to call something that's, an external force on you or whatever. The ability to define those things and what a difference it makes, right? It's not just about knowing the word. It's not just about sounding smart. Defining guilt and shame being kind of the perfect example of that whole thing. Yeah. And so whether it's anxiety or excitement or whether it's whatever, but guilt and shame to me is kind of the one that I think everybody can really just easily wrap their head around. And
I think the greatest disservice that we get is that people put them together.
Yeah, fair enough. So, but the bigger picture here, Ryan.
Sorry.
In school, they don't teach you to do this, right? In grade 8 or grade 6 or grade 4, nobody said, "Hey guys, here's a feeling wheel, here's an emotion wheel." Right. And Christ, they should, though. Right. Because really the power that comes from understanding the difference in these words gives you the ability to define and then choose. And to me, that, like you said, it's freedom. Right. It all ties in really to that. Right. And
it's more evolutionary than that, to be honest with you. Like, so every one of my staff members has a feeling wheel at their desk. Everybody does. That's part of the culture we have here. Yeah. We don't answer with good, fine. That we go to the wheel if we don't know what the feeling is. The other thing is like it shifts our makeup, our operating system, I guess, in that we start by having an understanding of what the words are. We start to hear or feel what other people are saying through the words they're choosing or their body language without having to actually say the word.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then when I reframe to somebody, "Oh, you're saying that you feel content," and they go, "Yeah, that's it, bam." And there's this practice called focus. This is where the locating thing comes from, where we get in touch with our body, our somatic experience, because our somatic experience carries a lot of wisdom, especially relative to the emotional lexicon. So when I say the word I'm feeling out loud, my body shifts, and it's called a knowing. Yeah. And so it's not a guess. It's just like, yep, that's it, 100%. So this guy, Eugene Gendlin, developed this practice called focus. If you guys ever want to look it up, it's on just Google focus by Eugene Gendlin. And there's a 6-step process. You can practice anytime you want, and it creates alignment. It creates a psychosomatic connection. And when we're in that space, that makes us connectable, which is my definition personally of spirituality. For me to be spiritual is to be connectable. I keep it that simple because I'm not a religious guy. I don't know much about any of that stuff. All I know is that when I'm fulfilled, I'm connectable. When I'm vulnerable, I'm connectable. When I'm brave, I'm connectable.
Mhm. I'm going to put a show. I'm just looking that up right now as we're talking because I can do that now with my new setup here.
Yeah.
I have a couple of monitors. So I'm looking up that Eugene Gettlein focus so that I can put it in the show notes for the listeners.
Cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like I said, I used to. It's a little. You can read the book, which I have, or you can do a little PDF that they have. Just
Yeah.
I used to hand
and
out.
he walks you through it. I've watched this in the past, and he does walk you through the process in the video, right? So yeah.
Yeah, and you can literally do it at the end of your bed. Like it's an easy practice, but what it does is it creates this like psychosomatic alignment that that most of us have never really experienced before, and it expands our ability to emotionally regulate and have an understanding of what we're feeling at any given time. Obviously, the more we practice, the better we get at it, and the more connected we'll become.
Hey guys, well, I got my denture in from dentkits.com, and I got to tell you, for the first time in 3 years, I'm looking in the mirror, and I'm not reliving the trauma. I'm not feeling terrible about myself. I like my smile. It's so awesome. Anyway, hey, they are way less expensive than traditional dentures. No matter what your situation is, whether you're missing one tooth or a whole mouthful, dentkits.com has an affordable solution for you. Check them out, guys. I am so proud to be an ambassador for this product. Now that I have my smile fixed, you can look forward to some video episodes of Ash's Sauce. Thanks for listening. Now back to the show.
So yeah, I mean, I think it's a good way. I mean, I think the guilt shame thing is a really good way to describe an entire realm of existence that is mostly unexplored by North American capitalist society, and that's capitalism doesn't like emotional intelligence.
All right. I'm glad that we went back over a lot of these things, and we kind of got off topic, but that's what we do. It's okay. I do want to. I mean, there's a mailbag question in for today, and we don't like to skip those over whenever we can help it. So, if it's all good with you, I'd like to move on to the mailbag because we're getting down to our last 20 minutes or so to work here. So, right?
Yeah, we know how I talk.
From White Rock, BC. I got some stories about White Rock. That is a crazy place. Yeah.
I like it. It's nice down there.
I love it. I'd like to go sober. I've never experienced it through that lens, of course, right? Because every time I've been there to party hard. But it's been like what an amazing place, part of the world. I'd really like to go see that sober.
Yeah, so like a lot of people will say they're from White Rock when they're actually in Surrey because Surrey's got such a bad name.
some Surrey shame, maybe.
Yeah, like North White Rock. You mean South Surrey?
Yeah. All right. So Harry G from White Rock, BC says, and he's actually from White Rock. We're going to give him benefit of the doubt. He's not a Surrey guy. Okay. Harry G from White Rock says, how do you forgive yourself when you have decimated your value system and moral principles in addiction?
It sounds like we've got a regular listener here. Wow. So I think the first thing I would want to do with this question is look at that very first part of that. How do we forgive ourselves?
Mm-hmm.
Like, we talk about freedom all the time, right? Think about those prisons we live in where we lack self-compassion through resentment against ourselves.
Okay. Yep.
And like, are you willing to even allow yourself the permission for forgiveness?
Mm-hmm.
Do you deserve forgiveness?
Yeah.
And of course we all do, but when we have that internal dialogue, the answers usually come back quite a bit different.
Yeah.
And so what are we talking? If I don't feel like I deserve to forgive myself, I'm probably at a state of really low intrinsic resource, low self-esteem, low self-worth, low self-respect.
Yeah.
I don't deserve the life I'm living. I don't, these kids deserve a better dad or mom. My parents deserve a better son or daughter. You know what I mean? So, looking at that right away is like, are you willing to allow yourself the space to be of value, to be forgiven? And I always think, Huggy Bear in that, what is that? Starsky and Hutch, movie where Snoop plays Huggy Bear and he says,
Yeah.
to be of error is to be human. To be of forgiveness is to be divine. And so,
Yes.
yeah, so much wisdom out of a stupid movie. You know what I mean? Like, and so, do we trust ourselves to be in a state of growth and connectedness? And so, when our value system has been decimated, that just means there's corrosion. But I mean, when we get healthy, it knocks the dust off, and the way we get healthy is by practicing these values.
The fact that you recognize that there's a value system to be decimated says that you're still holding on. I think, you know what I mean?
Yes.
Right?
And so what do we know about yesterday?
Sucks, but it happened and it's gone.
It happened.
Right?
What do we know about tomorrow?
Not a goddamn thing, right?
It's completely unwritten. What do we know about the right now?
Yeah.
That's the only thing that matters. So
Absolutely.
what do we do? I mean, we can sit in that space of, I really screwed this up. I'm trying to watch my language. I screwed this up in the past, but I can make a commitment right now that if you give me the opportunity, I should say, I will be honest, and that's an important value of mine. If I give me the opportunity, I will be courageous, and that's an important value of mine. If I give me the opportunity, I will be compassionate, and I don't need to prove that to anybody but myself.
Yeah. Yep.
So that value system is only decimated if I'm living in yesterday.
Yeah.
As far as I know right now, sitting here in front of you, Chuck, right now, my value system is as strong as it needs to be, and I will be the person I need to be to uphold those values. And I will also allow myself the space of forgiveness if I don't hold that end up, because sometimes I'm going to be out of values and I'm going to be out of rhythm, and I need that contrast to know when I am in rhythm.
Yeah.
To be out of value implies being in value. You know what I mean?
So,
and so, like, go ahead. Sorry.
With these answers, sometimes they're right. They're profound. But how does one put that into practice? How does one go from this place where you're feeling the shame, whatever, the guilt, maybe in his case, to allowing yourself? Like, is there an exercise? Is there something somebody can do to kind of get themselves there?
Yeah, absolutely. So something practical. Okay. First of all, no room for shame. So I like that you brought that up right away, because I think that is stuck to everything here. Yeah. And we need to make this guilt. This is about being a better human being. This isn't about not being enough. Yeah. So we got to get shame out the door. It can beat it. Okay. Now we're at guilt. So what are the values? First thing I would do is get my top 5 values. I would go to BrenéBrown.com and look at her 100 values list that she has. It's a PDF. And I would pick my top 5. And she says to have 3 is to have none. I don't agree. I think that you can have a set of values. I would number them in priority, which I often get my clients to do. And then I would go to those values. Okay, which ones are decimated? Okay, so I have not been integral. Okay, so from now on, moving forward, my commitment based on integrity itself is to be integral, which is kind of a duality or a double commitment. You know what I mean? But and it doesn't matter what happened yesterday. Because all yesterday has done is inform me about today and how I'm going to write tomorrow. Yeah. So I'm not sitting in that shame of yesterday. I'm going to be in the guilt of the now and propel me into the triumph of tomorrow. Yeah. Right. Yeah. And so I get those values. I don't know. I don't use the term moral. I think he said moral principles. Moral to me is another one of those shamey outside in words. Yep. So that's not really in my lexicon. I see it as a deficit-based term, but that could be just me. I just look at the value system and living within that and finding alignment and rhythm. And so then we take those things and I just do an assessment. Which ones have been decimated? Which ones are strong? Which ones can carry me while the other ones are being strengthened? And then I make those commitments, and I every little victory I appreciate. Every little win.
I might throw a suggestion out there as well. Of course, I'm not I'm the host. I'm not the therapist, but
I'm a host now too.
Does that mean I'm a therapist now too?
Yeah.
Well, I am a PRR
remorse.
Post-recording remorse.
Post-recording
PRRT. Yeah. Anyway, no, and just a ton of my own lived experience, right?
You have something to say, Chuck.
Yeah, I know I do. I'm just being silly.
Right.
listening to Harry and being in Harry's shoes not that long ago.
Yeah.
Every time you want to say sorry to somebody, say thank you instead. Thank you for giving me another shot. Not sorry that I did this. And the difference, and I don't just mean when you're sitting there having that conversation. I mean, if you're sitting there wallowing in guilt, and I'm going to say shame, even though we shouldn't be in shame, but if these are the things that are affecting you right now,
don't want to be in
what
shame.
you did to your mother, your sister, your brother, your whomever, call them and say thank you for giving me another chance. Don't just, and if you want to get out of wallowing in it, it's the fundamental shift in their reactions to you and how you perceive everything is amazing. Those gratitudes are absolutely, they're everything to me. So,
yep.
Yeah.
Let's give that a little space because that's profound. I don't like the word sorry.
No.
I like the thank you, and all the other thing is like, right. Thank you for helping me become a better person. Yeah. Unfortunately, you had to go through some pain. Pain is a constant. We're always going to have pain. That's part of life. Suffering is a choice.
Yeah. True story.
So
True story.
I would look at this question and I would say, how much of this you want to suffer and how much do you want to get going moving forward? But I do like the life experience answer there. I mean, obviously mine is theoretical because that's what I do. I appreciate your input, Chuck. I think that makes it quite text. It gives it texture. I think an value assessment, getting back to, working on the ones that need to be strengthened and relying on the ones that are strong. I think that's enough to carry us. Staying open, having an open mind, and and the other thing is like we're writing the future. So let's set some goals. Let's start dreaming big. Let's start looking at who we want to be in this world and start putting the micro movements in place to be that person. And allow yourself the space to fail. That's part of the human condition. And I don't mean fail. I mean, what's the other word for fail? Thesaurus. Lesson. Allow ourselves the space to learn lessons. And we often learn lessons by taking a wrong step or moving in the wrong direction. And we need to appreciate those as lessons. Our history is an archive. We only go there to get information. That's all it is. We get information to apply to the now and to influence how we write tomorrow. And so, just don't stay in it. Be who you want to be. He's already here. Harry, the guy you want to be is already here. He's already here, man. You don't have to build anything to make that happen. We just got to uncover some things.
Yeah.
It's an old saying from a guy named Chuck C. Wrote a book called A New Pair of Glasses. He says we uncover, discover, and discard.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, it does. It does. We could go on about this for hours, but hey, we've got another episode next week to do it in, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
That brings us to my favorite part of the show, and that is the Daily Gratitudes. Today's Daily Gratitudes are brought to you by Revolution Recovery, helping men recover and become their best selves through support and treatment. They've been there, and they understand. All right, so what you got for us today for some Daily Gratitudes, Ryan?
Nothing changes for me, man. I mean, beautiful, supportive wife and 2 lovely children. I'm super grateful that I have people in my world that can see my humanness and that allow me the space to be human and fallible, and also understand the importance of forgiveness and amendment, and that this is not a linear process, that we at times take a step back in order to take 2 steps forward, and that's the way life is. I'm just grateful for the beautiful people in my life, especially my wife and daughters.
Yeah. Great. For myself, I'll throw in a couple extras in this time. I am very grateful to some help I got getting my my hardware up and running here. It's it was what a stressful week that was, man. I just beside myself, kind of with what do I do now, right? And nobody expected that to happen, and it did, and here we are now. So I'm back up and running and better than ever at that. So and hopefully down the road, something like that happen again. I've set myself up in just such a way that it's not what's the word I'm looking for? Sorry?
Detrimental
to the whole damn thing. Catastrophic maybe is a better word for it, right? Yeah. So for that, I'm very, very grateful, and you know who you are if you're listening. And of course, the listeners, you guys, thank you so much for continuing to tune in. I went damn near a week without any content. And on this week too, it's less. There is some major changes happening to the format of the show, but I'm going to roll those out over the coming days. Stay tuned for that. And it blew me away throughout this entire week and a half. The numbers barely took a hit. People were still listening. So that's I'm pretty proud of that. I'm really proud of that, actually. So thank you guys for that. If you're on Spotify, please give us a comment. I love seeing those comments, and I publish them all, good, bad, or somewhere in between. If you're on Apple, rate us, review us, do the things. You know what we like to do. And, of course, if you are listening and you're not on Spotify, you can watch us on YouTube now as well. You just search Ashes to Awesome Podcast. On Spotify, you can listen to audio or to video. So there's that. Every time you guys do any one of these things, you're getting me a little bit closer to living my best life. My best life is to make a humble living spreading the message, and the message is this. If you are in active addiction right now, today could be the day. Today could be the day that you start that lifelong journey. Reach out to a friend, reach out to a family member, call into detox, go to a meeting, do whatever the hell it is you need to do, because it is so much better than the alternative. And if you are the loved one of somebody who is suffering in addiction, you've just taken the time to listen to us talk, maybe take another minute out of your day and text that person. Let them know they're loved. Use the words.
You are loved.
That little glimmer of hope just might be the thing that brings them back.
I'm the monster with a mondo to drugs and frustration. Created this isolation that others find selfish. Had to cope with some shit that could kill, hit the all switch. Had to do a mind shit to get through the time stretch. Seems like bad days last and the good days fly quick. This monster in my thoughts taunts me till I'm sick. Takes over reality. Can you feel the insanity? Body shaking like my thoughts are causing allergies. Truth from fiction can't seem to tell the difference. Anyone out there relate to me? My only one tripping. Left wishing I could be the normal one in the room. Anxiety got me twitching, feel a monster in the distance. Gotta get busy, can't let this shit affect me. When no one left to protect, who's gonna protect me? Feels like shit's getting messy. Now that the monster's taking over, I think it's the only one that gets me. Yeah. Met the monster in my storm. Did I let him stay too long? Cause he don't wanna leave till everybody's gone. Pushed away the ones that I need. It's messed up cause inside it's not who I wanna be. Think one thing and do another. React to the emotion that wants me to suffer. Sorry if I smother. I suffocate my relationship like we undercover. Wanna disconnect and run from the suburbs. The old me wants to return, wants me to forget what I've learned. Have nowhere to turn with all the bridges burned. Pain is what I know, heart's hard as stone. Feel the shakes in my bones, I'm turning cold. Look at what I did, you had my back from the beginning, but I couldn't see it. I was blinded by my feelings, selfish. I guess me and the monster have a lot of common. Look in the mirror, see the reflection of the problem. Yeah.
Stuck in your head. Monsters under your bed. We are monsters. Oh, we are monsters. Oh.
Am I the monster? I'm the monster with a mondo to drugs and frustration. Created this isolation that others find selfish. Had to cope with some shit that could kill, hit the all switch. Had to do a mind shit to get through the time stretch. Seems like bad days last and the good days fly quick. This monster in my thoughts taunts me till I'm sick. Takes over reality. Can you feel the insanity? Body shaking like my thoughts are causing allergies. Truth from fiction can't seem to tell the difference. Anyone decide to rob him? Am I the one trying to drag us to the bottom? When I get suspicious, is it all in my noggin? I guess this monster is morphed into my core. Spent so much time alone, thought I was talking to the walls. Locked in a prison, being haunted by my thoughts. Gotta break out and take out the monster like a boss, yeah.
Stuck in your head. Monsters under your bed. We are monsters. Oh, we are monsters. Oh.